You know that kind of rain that makes everything sound closer than it should? The kind that blurs the line between what's real and what's just your imagination. That's the rain I remember from that night. The night my friends and I decided to camp deep in the woods of Mount Western. It wasn't even supposed to be that deep. The plan was simple. Hike in, find a quiet spot near the river, set up tents, grill some food, and head back the next morning. But sometimes the woods have other plans. There were 4 of us, me, Caleb, Maya, and Vince. We'd been friends since college, and camping trips were our way to disconnect. No phones, no traffic, no noise, just the sound of nature. That day, everything felt perfect. The air smelled like wet pine and moss, and the trail glistened from a light drizzle earlier that morning. We reached a spot that seemed straight out of a postcard, a small clearing surrounded by tall black pines. The river was only a few feet away, its current soft and rhythmic, and there was an old wooden sign nailed to a tree. The words were faded, but you could still make out, "Do not stay overnight." We laughed, thinking it was just some ranger's way of scaring off litter bugs. Vince even joked, "Maybe Bigfoot rents this place on weekends." Sound of light laughter fading under the patter of rain. We ignored the sign. We pitched our tents, gathered firewood, and by sunset, the sky was a deep orange melting into gray. The forest grew quiet in that strange way forests do at night, like every animal suddenly stops breathing. Caleb poured whiskey into metal mugs, while Maya strummed her guitar. The rain had started again, soft, steady, hypnotic. I remember the sound hitting the tent roof later, the way it lulled me halfway to sleep. But that's when I heard it. At first I thought it was part of the rain, like a faint scraping noise just outside my tent. Then I realized it was moving. Something, or someone, was circling around us, slow and deliberate. I froze, holding my breath, trying to listen through the rhythm of the rain. A second later, Caleb's whisper came from the other tent. "Did you hear that?" I wanted to say no, but before I could, there was a sharp snap, like a branch breaking underfoot, followed by footsteps. Not animal-like. Human. We unzipped our tents almost at the same time, our flashlights cutting through the misty darkness. Nothing. Just the tall, dripping pines and the shimmer of rain falling in our beams. Vince called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" His voice echoed weirdly, and like it bounced back too fast. That's when Maya noticed something. Right where the sign had been, the wooden post now lay flat on the ground, split down the middle like something had crushed it. She swore it hadn't looked like that before nightfall. We tried to shake it off, told ourselves it was the wind, or maybe the wood had rotted through. But after we went back to our tents, I couldn't sleep. The rain grew heavier, the air colder. And then I heard it again. Not scraping this time. Whispering. A faint, broken voice. It sounded like it was coming from the trees behind my tent. I held my breath, straining to make out the words. It was distant, slurred, almost drowned by the rain, but it sounded like someone calling my name. Eli. Over and over. Eli. Come out. My blood ran cold. Nobody here called me Eli except my mother. Not Caleb, not Maya, not Vince. I unzipped the tent just enough to peek through. The forest looked endless. Black silhouettes shifting under the downpour. And there it was. About 30 feet away, half hidden behind a tree, stood a figure. Tall, still, watching me. I flicked my flashlight toward it, but the light barely touched it before it darted out of sight. Impossibly fast, like it slid between the trees rather than ran. I stumbled out, shouting for my friends. My voice cracked in the rain. Caleb came out with his flashlight, eyes wide. He said he saw it too. Not the figure, but the trail it left. Wet footprints leading away from our campsite. Barefoot footprints. We decided to stay together in one tent till morning. The hours crawled by. The whispers came and went, sometimes soft, sometimes right behind the tent walls. Once something brushed against the fabric from outside. We didn't sleep at all. When dawn came, the rain stopped. Everything looked peaceful again, like the forest had wiped itself clean overnight. But when we stepped outside, the footprints were everywhere. Hundreds of them circling the tents, all bare, all facing inward. That was the moment I realized. Whatever it was, it had been watching us the entire night. We packed in silence. None of us wanted to admit what we saw, but no one could deny the feeling that something had followed us even as we hiked back down. It wasn't just paranoia. The woods were too quiet. No birds, no wind, no insects. By the time we reached the trailhead, Maya stopped dead in her tracks. Her face went pale. Carved into the mud beside the path was a single word, S-T-A-Y. We left everything behind. The tents, the gear, the food. We never went back for any of it. A week later, Vince sent us a link to a local news article. A group of hikers had gone missing near Mount Western. Their campsite was found abandoned. The photos showed the same clearing we camped in. But there were no tents, no fire pit, just 4 muddy footprints in a circle. The police said it was probably an animal attack. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And every time it rains at night, I swear I can still hear that whisper, soft, broken, and calling my name. It's strange how quiet the world becomes. When you're far enough from everything. No cars, no chatter, no city hum. Just the sound of rain on wood and your own heartbeat. That's what I remember most about that weekend. The silence. And the way it made everything else feel louder. The creak of the floorboards. The drip from the roof. The whispering in the trees. I never meant to spend the night in that cabin. It was supposed to be just a day trip, a short photography hike into the Weller Forest. But rain came faster than expected, thick, cold, and relentless. My map was useless, the trail was gone, and I had no signal. By the time I saw the cabin, it was already dark. It looked ancient, the kind of place that hadn't been touched in decades. Its roof sagged in the middle, and the windows were coated in grime, thick enough to make them look like black mirrors. But there was smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was there. I should have turned back. But the rain was bone-chilling and the forest felt endless. So I approached, knocked on the door, and waited. No answer. I knocked again. The sound echoed hollow through the woods. Still nothing. Then the door creaked open, yet just a little. Enough for the wind to catch it. The inside was dark except for a faint orange glow deeper inside, maybe from a fire or a lantern. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" No reply, but the warmth spilling from inside pulled me in. The place smelled like wet ash and something faintly metallic, like rust or old blood. A single candle burned on a wooden table near the center, surrounded by strange carvings in the wood. Circles, triangles, symbols I didn't recognize. I set down my bag, hoping maybe whoever lived there wouldn't mind if I waited out the storm. There was a kettle on the stove, long cold, and an old photograph hanging crooked on the wall. It showed a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl, all standing in front of that same cabin. But their faces were scratched out. Every single one. I remember whispering to myself, Okay, that's creepy, just trying to lighten the air. But my voice sounded too loud, too real in that dead silence. That's when I heard the floor creak upstairs, just one step, then another. I froze. Hello? Nothing. The stairs were just a few feet from where I stood. I pointed my flashlight up the narrow staircase. The beam caught dust floating like tiny ghosts. But at the top of the stairs, I could swear I saw the edge of a dress slip behind the wall. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination. Maybe a reflection or shadow. But something about the air changed. Heavy, charged, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Then I heard it. A voice. Faint, coming from upstairs. It sounded like a child. Mommy! Every instinct screamed leave. But curiosity, or stupidity, made me climb those stairs. Each step moaned under my weight. When I reached the top, I found 3 doors. The one on the left was slightly open, a flicker of light coming from inside. I pushed it open slowly. It was a child's bedroom. Old toys lined the shelves, wooden blocks, a cracked porcelain doll, a small music box shaped like a bird. The wallpaper was peeling and every surface was coated in dust. But there were fresh footprints on the floor, tiny, bare. I followed them to the corner where a small bed sat, covered in a faded quilt. The footprints ended there. The air grew colder. The candle downstairs flickered. Then the music box started to play. The lid creaked open by itself, and the haunting lullaby filled the room. Soft, uneven, like it hadn't been played in years. That's when I saw it. The reflection in the cracked mirror across the room. A small girl standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the floor creaked again, this time from the hallway. Slow, deliberate steps. Heavier now. Someone else was up there. I backed toward the door, my light shaking in my hand. The steps grew louder, closer, then stopped right outside the room. I held my breath. The door began to move. Not from the wind, but like someone was pressing their hand against it, slowly pushing. And then the whisper. You shouldn't be here. The voice was deep. Male. Close enough to feel it in my chest. I bolted, ran down the stairs, grabbed my bag, and didn't even look back. But before I reached the door, it slammed shut on its own. The candle blew out. Darkness swallowed everything. I hit the door, kicking, pulling, screaming, but it wouldn't budge. Then, from behind me, that same voice said quietly, "She wants to play." Something cold touched my neck. Not a hand, more like the edge of something sharp. I turned, swinging the flashlight wildly. No one was there, but the symbols carved into the table were glowing faintly red. I didn't think. I ran to the nearest window, smashed it with my flashlight, and crawled out into the rain. The forest was black and endless, but I kept running until I saw headlights. A ranger's truck. They found me shaking on the side of the dirt road, drenched and babbling about the cabin. When I told them where it was, they exchanged a look I didn't understand. One of them finally said, "You must have been mistaken. That cabin burned down 15 years ago." "There's nothing there now," I argued. Begged them to go look. So they did. The next morning, they took me back to where I'd seen it. There was no cabin. Just blackened earth and half-buried debris, like the forest had swallowed it whole. But I found something in the dirt. A music box, shaped like a bird. And when I opened it, it played the same haunting lullaby I'd heard that night. Pause. The sound of rain grows louder. Faint thunder rolls again. I haven't gone back to Weller Forest since. But sometimes when the rain falls heavy and the house goes quiet, I swear I can hear that soft voice again, whispering from somewhere in the dark. "Mommy."